Today we will be talking about scatter plot review as we wait for the smartboard file to open up. There we are. So this is just a quick review of scatter plots and fitting lines to data. So in order to do this, we need to recall everything about writing equations of lines. And the biggest thing is that we need to have slope and that we have to have a y-intercept. When we work with data, such as this given here, we have a year, and then it's specified within the story problem that we want to use years since 1990. The reasons why we want to do that is so that we don't have to graph these large values here on a graph. It's much easier to use smaller numbers to graph with. So we have these data sets. This is part of a scatter plot. We're comparing the year and an active cluster. When we do that, we can plot out our points so that we notice that there's a relationship between the points. When we're not given a graph, what we are asked to do is we are asked to select 2 points in which to use to generate slope. We need 2 points to generate slope, and so I will use the 2 points of 220 and 842 as our example of slope. So to find slope, we must remember our slope formula. M equals y2 minus y1 all over x2 minus x1. Keeping in mind that our values of x1 and y1 go together and our values of x2, y2 go together. Taking those points and filling in the values, I will start with 42. I will subtract 20, and then I would take 8, subtract 2. Subtracting, I would find that I would get 22 over 6, which is equal to 11 thirds, which roughly, if I want to use that as a decimal, will be 3.6 repeating. That's step 1. I've now found my slope. I need to work on finding my y-intercept. And remember that this is a data set, so this equation we are going to be using to predict the future. Now that I've found my slope, I'll rewrite it here for you on this slide. Found my slope to be 11 thirds, or roughly 3.6 repeating. I need to find my y-intercept. And the key thing that I need to do when I find my y-intercept is remember, I have to use one of the original points to locate the y-intercept. So I have to use either the location of 220 or the location of 842 to help me find my intercept. Those were the 2 points I used to find slope, so they are the points I need to use when I'm finding the y-intercept. So I'll continue by plugging in what I know. I'll use this point here that I marked with a star of 220, and I will have 20 is equal to 11 thirds times 2 plus b. I'm now going to solve to find b, or my y-intercept. Multiplying, I would have 20 is equal to 22 thirds plus b. I can write that as a decimal of 7.3 repeating. And I can subtract that off and find that b approximately is going to be 12.6 repeating. I now have enough information to write an equation of a line of fit that would go with this data set. So let's put it all together. I would have the equation y equals my slope that I found to be 11 thirds, or approximately 3.6 repeating, times x plus my y-intercept I just found to be 12.6 repeating. This equation is used to predict values, not within the original table. So we want to predict out. So let's now say that I needed to predict how many clusters would be appearing in the year 2012. Keep in mind that it's years since 1990, so that actually puts me at 12 years. 12 years is the value that I would plug in for X to predict how many clusters I would have in 2012. So doing so, you can see I put 12 in for X and I add 12.6 repeating. Multiplying out, I would find that Y would be equal to roughly 44 plus 12.6. And Y, or how many clusters I have, would be 56.6 repeating. This equation is used to predict forward. The strength of your prediction is based upon something called correlation. So we're going to review this quickly. We talked about this in a previous class, but correlation has three types, and they're shown in the graphs below that paragraph. And the strength of the correlation determines how well the line predicts. The correlation value is something that needs to be calculated, and we will be using the graphing calculator to help us figure out the strength or the value of correlation. For now, you just need to refresh your memory on what positive correlation is, negative correlation, and no correlation is.